You are joining us for a deep dive into a headline that's been making serious noise online. Ed TS, sent after Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, that one definitely caught people's attention.
Totally. We've got a fascinating mix of stuff here, some, raw text snippets and a really insightful report that kind of breaks down what that phrase means or maybe doesn't mean. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. Let's look beyond the hype, right? Figure out what the real story is, based purely on the info we actually have.
Precisely. Because the internet loves a good dramatic headline. But our goal is, well, to dissect this and understand the factual threads, separating them from all this sensationalism.
Okay, so to set the stage, think back to February 9th, 2025. Kendrick Lamar, headlining the Super Bowl LIX halftime show.
Huge event, massive audience.
Yeah, huge. A record-breaking 133.5 million viewers, apparently. Now, this didn't happen in, like, a vacuum. You've got his well-documented and pretty fiery feud with Drake.
Right, that's key context.
Which has even spilled over into the legal system, with defamation lawsuits and all that. That ongoing tension is definitely a piece of this puzzle.
Absolutely. This isn't some isolated thing that just popped up. It's unfolding against this backdrop of existing animosity and a lot of public eyes on both artists.
All right, let's dive straight into that headline then. FVDS, sent after Kendrick Lamar. When you read that, your first thought is probably, I don't know, FBI. Some kind of big investigation.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds intense.
Well, what our sources strongly suggest is that this is far more likely a reference to over 125 complaints that were actually filed with the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC.
FCC, okay.
Regarding his performance. And here's the crucial bit. As of April 2nd, 2025, we just don't have any confirmed reports of an actual federal investigation targeting Lamar.
That's a critical distinction to make right off the bat. Public complaints to a regulatory body like the FCC, that's totally different from a formal federal investigation being launched.
Totally different animal.
Yeah. That headline definitely paints a picture of immediate legal jeopardy that just doesn't seem to be backed up by the evidence we have here. It really highlights how easily things get twisted with, impactful but maybe misleading phrasing.
Exactly. So, okay, what fueled these FCC complaints then? Our sources point to the main trigger being his performance of Not Like Us.
Right, which, as you mentioned, is a pretty direct and intense diss track aimed squarely at Drake.
And it's not just that it's a diss track, right? It's the specific content of the lyrics. That seems central to why people complained.
The specifics matter here.
Yeah. The complaints really zeroed in on the accusations of pedophilia against Drake within the lyrics. Now, it's interesting. During the Super Bowl show itself, Lamar actually left out the really direct line, certified pedophile.
Okay, so he did modify it slightly for the broadcast.
Right, but he did include other lines like, say, Drake, I hear you like him young and trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor. So while maybe he pulled back a bit, the underlying implication, still very much there for a lot of viewers.
And given the existing feud and Drake's own legal actions against Universal Music Group tied to these specific accusations, yeah, it's understandable how those lyrical choices, even slightly tweaked, would draw a big reaction. And for some people, be seen as highly objectionable.
Absolutely. But it wasn't just the lyrics about Drake that caused a stir. Serena Williams showed up during the performance.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing that.
And she did some dance moves that, well, a number of viewers interpreted as Crip walking. Which they then associated with the Crips gang. So naturally, this led to complaints about the performance, maybe, like promoting gang affiliation.
Wow. It's quite telling how cultural expressions, especially on such a massive stage, can be read in such different and sometimes really controversial ways.
Yeah. And Serena Williams and her husband, Alexis Ohanian, they did defend her on social media, pointing out she's faced similar criticisms before.
Right. So this kind of scrutiny isn't exactly new for her, it sounds like.
Seems like it. Okay, so beyond the Drake stuff and Serena's dancing, there were other things raised in these complaints, too. Some viewers just didn't like the language, certain gestures, felt they weren't okay for family viewing.
Standard broadcast complaints sometimes.
Yeah, kinda. And then there were even complaints alleging apparent anti-American themes. The split American flag image was mentioned specifically by some.
Okay, so political interpretations, too.
And interestingly, there were also some complaints about a perceived lack of diversity among the performers, noting it was mostly black artists.
So really a pretty wide range of concerns being voiced then. Everything from the feud lyrics to cultural symbolism interpretations to broader criticisms about themes and representation.
Exactly. It just underscores a diverse viewpoints and, frankly, sensitivities within such a huge audience.
It really does.
Okay, so we've got these FCC complaints. But how did that turn into this much more dramatic narrative? FAD sent after Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, how did that leap happen?
Well, our report suggests this likely gained momentum through social media,
Hmm.
specifically reaction videos popping up on platforms like X, formerly Twitter, starting around late March 2025.
Ah, social media amplification. That makes perfect sense in today's world, doesn't it? The algorithms often push content that seems dramatic or grabs attention.
Totally.
And a headline like that, FDS sent after, implies serious trouble. It's way more clickable, more shareable than just saying FCC complaints filed.
Exactly. The report even gives examples like video titles FADS and after Kendrick Lamar from Willie D. Live conversations. And then you had various X posts sharing these videos, pushing that headline, handles like at Andre Jones 816, at 6lack Twitter. They were part of spreading that narrative, or at least that really punchy phrase.
So it's a clear case of how social media's kind of interconnected, self-reinforcing nature can take a regulatory response and blow it up into something sounding like major law enforcement action.
Regardless of the actual facts, yeah.
Right.
And it's important to point out that while mainstream media, like the Daily Mail, the Irish Star, they did report on the controversy, right? The Super Bowl show, the FCC complaints.
They covered the buzz.
They covered the buzz. But our sources don't show them actually confirming any kind of federal investigation.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to substantiate that more extreme claim about federal agents getting involved.
That's a crucial difference. Responsible journalism would report the controversy, mention the FCC complaints, but they wouldn't jump to confirming a federal investigation without solid proof.
Which seems to be what happened. There was even this interesting observation on X from a user at Renaissance567 who kind of speculated on who filed the complaints, writing, "We bet the 125 people that filed the complaint was Caucasian."
That really brings the social and racial commentary surrounding this whole thing right to the surface, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It highlights those underlying dynamics, racial, cultural hodgments, that often bubble up when we talk about artistic expression, especially when it touches sensitive topics or challenges mainstream expectations. Which brings us to the bigger picture. It's kind of unexpected, isn't it? How a Super Bowl halftime show, meant to be entertainment, gets tangled up in these much broader political and cultural debates.
It really is.
That same X post from at Renaissance567 also questioned the consistency of public outrage, asking something like, what about Putius and his language? Comparing the reactions.
That's fascinating. It shows how a performance like this can suddenly become a focal point for these really big debates. Freedom of speech, race, representation in pop culture, media regulation.
It's like a lightning rod.
Exactly. Pop culture acting as a lightning rod, reflecting and maybe even amplifying these larger societal conversations.
Yeah, it's like this performance became a flashpoint. People are using it as a lens to just everything from what's okay in public entertainment to, who gets to be offended and why that matters.
Yeah. And if you just step back and think about how information spreads now in our digital age, this whole situation really underscores the power of online narratives, especially when they're crafted to be super attention-grabbing, even if accuracy or nuance gets lost along the way.
So true. Okay, so to really boil this down for everyone listening, the key takeaway here is that headline, FEDS sent after Kendrick Lamar. Super attention-grabbing, for sure. But the evidence we've looked at, it strongly points to this being primarily about public complaints filed with the FCC after his Super Bowl show.
Right. Not a federal investigation, at least not based on what we know now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As of today, April 2nd, 2025, there's just no solid info suggesting an actual federal investigation is happening. This whole thing really shows how easily regulatory actions can get misinterpreted as, like, criminal investigations online.
It really does. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? To be critical of those sensational headlines flooding our feeds. Always got to dig a bit deeper, understand the context. The speed a narrative, even a wrong one, can take hold online is.
Well, it's remarkable. And that leads us to a final thought, something for you to chew on. Considering how fast and in what form information travels today, how do these kinds of really sensationalized narratives grab hold so quickly?
Good question.
And what does it tell us about how we, as a society, interpret things happening in the public eye? really think about the role social media, even mainstream media, plays in shaping how we see controversies like this one.
Definitely something worth contemplating.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.